Buy Sri Lanka's best internet package for online learning and online working with many amazing offers. Call 1212 for more information. Sri Lanka Telecom.
ලෙන්ගතුකම වැඩි කරගන්න ලව්ජු රුපියල් 50ට අඩු කළා.
මාමේ එන්න අපිට එකක් බොමු.
Tonight, not just yet. The Minuangoda cluster rises past 1,060, but authorities say no need for full lockdown as tracing efforts continue. Resting on our laurels, the army commander says people's overconfidence the reason for the new cluster.
We were proud to say that we are the country who say Aibuan and all that. Later on, no Aibuan, shaking hands and giving hugs. Maybe we were too confident.
We've got your back. Top-level delegation tells President Gotabaya that China stands fully behind Sri Lanka's independence, sovereignty and territorial integrity, even at the UNHRC. Knowing what to expect, Asia Securities says the second wave won't stop the equity rebound.
Corporates have already experienced what's happened on the first wave. They're actually much more prepared to face the second wave.
All that and much more coming up on First at 9. This Friday, the 9th of October, 2020.
Nava Sunlight Sakura. Then Dikukal Pavatina Sakura Mal Suandin.
From AdaDerana, this is AdaDerana First at 9. Live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
Good evening and welcome to First at 9. I'm Dhammike Kanayaka. Now, the epidemiology unit warns that if COVID-19 clusters are formed within the society, a community spread of the virus will have to be declared. The Minuangoda COVID-19 cluster has now increased to 1,069, with a 10-month-old infant also being among them. Authorities continue to urge employees of the new Ground Zero and their contacts who are yet to surrender for the quarantine process to do so immediately, as failure to comply will be severely dealt with.
Following the latest detections, the number of patients in the Minuangoda COVID-19 cluster as of this evening stands at 1,069.
සමහර විට තවමත් හඳුනා නොගත්තු රෝගීන් මේ සමාජය තුල අපිට එන්න පුළුවන්. අපි සමාජයට ගියාම කොතනකදී හෝ ඒ වගේ රෝගියෙක් අපිට මුණ ගැහෙන්න පුළුවන්. ඉතින් එතනදී තවත් කෙනෙකුට මේක ආසාදනය වෙලා තවත් රෝගියෙක් හෝ රෝගීන් පොකුරක් ඇති වෙන්න පුළුවන්. ඒ වගේ තත්ත්වයක් ආවොත් අපිට සිද්ධ වෙනවා මේක නම් කරන්න මේ අපේ COVID-19 රෝගිය සමාජගත වෙලයි කියලා.
Meanwhile, after the husband of a nurse attached to ward number 5 of the Horana Base Hospital tested positive for COVID-19, authorities took the decision to temporarily shut it down. The husband of the nurse is an employee of the Minuangoda apparel factory. Health officials said PCR tests also confirmed that a colleague of the nurse had also contracted the virus. Accordingly, the nurse was transferred to the Neville Fernando Teaching Hospital for treatment last night, leading to the temporary closure of ward number 7 of the hospital as well. Meanwhile, an individual who visited the Kataragama temple from the 29th of September to the 4th of this month, along with a group of employees of the Minuangoda apparel factory, has also contracted the virus. The patient, a resident of Udagalpaya Gampula, was hospitalized for treatment last night. Meanwhile, the police media spokesman DIG Ajit Rohana states that strict legal action will be taken against employees of the Minuangoda factory who are yet to follow health department instructions and surrender for quarantine. Meanwhile, an employee of the factory along with her family members who had been evading quarantine by hiding on an estate in Dikkoya Hatton were quarantined today. The woman and her husband had been staying at a rented house in Minuangoda and had returned home yesterday to Hatton. Accordingly, 69 residents living in the vicinity were also placed in self-quarantine. Further, health authorities confirmed today that a devotee who visited the Munneswaram Hindu temple in Chilau has tested positive for COVID-19. Officials revealed that the patient, a resident of Haguranketa, had arrived as part of a group for a puja at the temple on the 3rd of October and had also visited the Ishwara temple and the Kali temple as well. Health authorities have launched investigations to trace the temple's priests who performed the pujas as well as the other attendees who also participated on that day. Meanwhile, a grade 12 student at a school in Chilau has also tested positive. The student had attended a private tuition class over the weekend in Gampaha district and had travelled in a van along with 17 other students who authorities are currently in the process of tracing. It was also revealed that the student had sought treatment at a private medical centre on the Chilau-Bangadini road on 6 October. The physician who attended to the patient has been placed under self-quarantine and a PCR test has also been carried out. A further 33 residents in the Adippala area in Arachikattuva have also been placed in self-quarantine as a result. Health authorities also announced that a 10-month-old infant has also tested positive after being admitted to the Lady Ridge Bay Children's Hospital on the 7th October. A PCR test was carried out on the infant after hospital staff learned that the family resided in the vicinity of the Minuwangoda apparel factory. The infant is currently being treated at the IDH hospital. Further, a PCR test carried out on the father of a 5-month-old child, also at the Lady Ridge Bay Children's Hospital, has come back positive as well. Meanwhile, an employee of a garment factory in the Katunayaka Investment Promotion Zone has also contracted the virus, resulting in PCR tests being carried out on her close associates. In the meantime, the quarantine curfew imposed on 18 police areas in the Gampaha district remains in effect till further notice. However, the authorities had allowed shops and pharmacies in the area to remain open from 8 am to 8 pm today.
Safeguard hand sanitizer. Navatama nishpadana pela neerogimat diviyakata.
Commander of the Sri Lanka Army, Lieutenant General Shavendra Silva, insists that there won't be a change in the present curfew situation, which is brought on by the recent apparel factory COVID-19 cluster. He, however, cautioned that it is largely situational. Speaking to Indiva Riyamuatta on our current affairs program at Hyde Park on AdaDerana 24, the Army Commander also added that the overconfidence of the people in recent months disregarding health protocols may have led to the rise of COVID-19 in the country once more.
Some say it's a new phase, a fresh wave of COVID-19. How do you term this situation?
Yeah, no, this is nothing new. The fact remains that why they say it's a new one, especially because last 48 hours when we went for interviews and also the medical specialist mentioned about something called the virus load of this time. Since the first patient was found on 11th March this year, what we experienced according to doctors, that the virus load of this COVID-19 of the patients that we got in Sri Lanka was something about 20-25, something like that. Unfortunately, in this time, what we find the virus load with these patients are very high. The CT level that they say, when the level is low, it says that the virus load is very high. So thereby, it's natural for someone to think that it's a different type of a virus.
This time it has been difficult to trace patient 0. What's happening here? Where did it begin?
The strategy was made by the President and the task force. We could say that we were having the best strategy without any hesitation. Here the situation is still under control. There is absolutely no problem. The President meets every day. Of course, he has given all instructions, everything is in place. We wanted to find out from where it came, and we found that in the factory there had been cases, not COVID, maybe symptoms. They have reported to the factory's medical center. Now, although we found this lady on the 3rd, we found that when we were doing the contact tracing, there had been cases from 21st onwards. At the factory, there had been people reporting with certain symptoms from 21st, got the books that we have gone through. And the contact tracing, we also found that there had been another person who had felt something like that, although we are not tested on the 15th of this month. We have found a large number on one day. We tested all 1,500 employees at that factory, and the results came in 2 days, but then we found that yes, over 1,000 are positive.
In terms of the disinformation and misinformation, there's targeted fake news, and also we talk about an apparel manufacturer here in question. That's a Sri Lankan brand. How are you looking at this?
very knowledgeable Sri Lankans will understand the situation. Every time either some authority comes over like this and tell, I'm sure that the people will believe, and people have a lot of confidence. We know misinformation have been there for the last 4 days. Wherever serious type of misinformation we have handled, and now the doubt must be not there. We can't stop misinformation because the system is that anyone today want to put something, can go where then others will have to clarify this. That's all that is happening to see the clarity or the truth of it. So
most of these cases are not rushed to hospitals immediately. Instead, they are kept at their residences. But what is the strategy here?
The same strategy, there is no change. First day when we tested after this lady's incident, we have found 101. Then next day we found almost 800 on one day. So you can imagine they are scattered in various places. We were very proactive in our action, everything. But here you are talking about the patients, those who got positive. These employees were brought to this particular factory, did the test, they went back to their home. We would have to understand, I think PHI is working for a large number of people in one particular area. So they are the people who are responsible of taking them back to send them back to hospitals. But they are very limited, and there were large number, as I said, just 800. I'm sure this 800 would have been handled by very few PHIs who are on ground. But there would have been a little delay. But of course, they were inside their houses, not moving around because of the curfew.
What do we do now? What advice do you give now? Because the last 2 months, it looks like Sri Lanka took it in a very light way. It looks like we went into a space of complacency.
I think you and I don't have to tell. Those spectators who are watching this will know as to how the people of our country behaved during the last few months. As of that, we never had COVID also. Some people behaved like that. We were very proud to say that we are the country who say Aiboan and all that. Later on, during this period, no Aiboan, shaking hands and giving hugs, all these type of things happen. So there we have gone wrong, definitely. Maybe we were too confident, I think. But this has been curtailed to this as of today.
The question is, will there be an island-wide curfew? Will there be a change? Will there be a blanket curfew?
The people of the country are eagerly waiting to know whether there will be a curfew for weekend. So at the moment, there is no such decision to enforce curfew anywhere other than these areas already existing. Curfew is existing. But in case, if at all, if there is a requirement, of course, there will be a decision taken according to the situation in particular area.
What are the challenges currently, Commander, in terms of handling the situation? Because we do see that some people are not complying with these regulations.
Challenges mainly the cooperation. What we want is for them to cooperate with us. I don't think there is a requirement of giving advices and putting up strategies and principles. I think each and every Sri Lankan knows by now how to behave and how to protect yourself. There is nothing new. But the challenge is that unless people cooperate, unless people behave according to the health rules and regulations, then there's a chance of someone get quiet. So I believe and trust that great Sri Lankans, each and every citizen responsibility is now to make sure that you won't be a COVID patient. There is a time we have come now, very crucial at these next 7 to 10 days. So unless otherwise you are really required to come onto roads or to a place, try to avoid. There can be other challenges. People are worried whether we have hospitals. Yes, we had limited hospitals for treating of COVID patients. Already the health minister and the sector had taken a decision to have more hospitals. I think about 14 hospitals, treatment hospitals have been already established where they can go up to a 2,000 to 2,500 capacity. So that has been built. Another big challenge was of the people to be quarantined. There was a capacity that we managed to do. Normally maximum number we kept was something around 8,000, but now it has gone almost up to 10,000, right, beyond 8,000. So we are at the optimum.
But how are we going to manage this gap?
That is what we say, nothing impossible. There were a lot of cry to bring our people back, people abroad. Because of this type of situation can happen on a strategy they were brought. The numbers were limited always, not beyond our limits or beyond our capabilities. The government brought the maximum that they could do, they brought. So that is why even the capacities are full now. With 2,000 going to quarantine, the capacities are gone full. So as of today, we have curtailed the numbers will be brought to Sri Lanka, and situation going to be in future, which we anticipate that we might have to have more quarantine centers or more facilities.
We will see you shortly after this break. Stay tuned.
Ceylon Bank, the bank with a heart.
Welcome back. You're watching First at 9. Now, the government insists that the Grade 5 scholarship examination and the GCE advanced level examination will go ahead as planned despite the uptick in COVID-19 numbers. What's more, 24 additional examination centres are also designated to facilitate students who are either from COVID-19 risk areas or were scheduled to sit for the examination in risk areas. With that being the case, candidates will sit for the two examinations on coming Sunday and Monday.
The Grade 5 scholarship examinations for this year will be held on Sunday, while the advanced level examinations will commence from Monday onwards. The Ministry of Education announced today that all students sitting for the Grade 5 examinations must submit their details, including their current health status, through a form available on the Ministry's official website. However, students who are unable to provide their details via the Ministry's site must provide the required information at the examination centre premises. In the meantime, 12 schools have been designated as additional examination centres for students sitting for the Grade 5 scholarship examination in the police areas where the curfew is imposed. With that, another 12 schools have also been designated as additional examination centres for students sitting for the GCE advanced level examination in areas which are currently under police curfew. You can access the full list of designated examination centres by logging on to our website www.AdaDerana.lk. In the meantime, the Excise Department announced today that all pubs, bars, casinos and nightclubs will be closed until the 31st of October. However, licensed liquor stores, hotels, inns and other guest houses will be able to remain open until the 31st of October only if they abide by the safety guidelines that have been issued by the Ministry of Health. Meanwhile, all customer services extended by the Central Mail Exchange in Colombo and all postal services within the Gampar district will be suspended until the 17th of October. Organizations utilizing the corporate postal services through the Colombo Central Mail Exchange have been instructed to contact the Assistant Superintendent of Postal Services and make the necessary arrangements to continue with the services. In other developments, the Technical Services Division of the Ceylon Industrial Development Board stated that the one-day technical training workshops and the certificate courses scheduled to be held this month have been postponed. Meanwhile, the Western Province Department of Business Registration announced that they too will suspend all activities until further notice. However, registrations of sole proprietorships and partnerships under the Timirigasyaya Divisional Secretariat will continue. The department also stated that services such as changes, invalidations, obtaining certified copies pertaining to businesses under the department can be obtained by producing the relevant documentation. The applications can be obtained by the official website of the department www.bnr.wp.gov.lk. Meanwhile, the Ministry of Buddha Sasana Religious and Cultural Affairs announced today that devotees to Hindu temples has been restricted to 50 devotees per temple.
The high-level Chinese delegation who arrived in the country last night states that China stands firmly in support of Sri Lanka's independence, sovereignty and territorial integrity at international forums, including the United Nations Human Rights Council. This was stated at a discussion held with President Gotabaya Rajapaksa today. The delegation also assured the President of the Chinese government's full support to bring his development visions into fruition.
A high-powered Chinese delegation led by former Chinese Foreign Minister and current Communist Party Politburo member Yang Jiechi arrived in Colombo last night. The delegation met with President Gotabaya Rajapaksa at the Presidential Secretariat today. The visit is the first overseas visit by top Chinese officials to South Asia since the COVID-19 pandemic outbreak. During the meeting, the delegation lead Yang Jiechi assured the President of China's continued support toward the success of Sri Lanka's development efforts. He also reaffirmed China's firm stance on the upholding Sri Lanka's independence, sovereignty and territorial integrity at international platforms, including the United Nations Human Rights Council. The president in turn told the delegation that he is committed to introducing the same high levels of development in Sri Lanka's rural communities that China has implemented successfully in their own. The president added that he also looks forward to seeing visible progress in the Port City project in the next 4 years. Pointing out that a massive gulf exists in Sri Lanka's trade balance with China, the president called for an increase in goods purchased from Sri Lanka and for greater access to the Chinese market for private sector goods and services. The president also stated that Chinese participation in Sri Lanka's tea auction would provide a massive boost to the country's economic stability. The president also called for Chinese investment into the establishment of a technical university for Sri Lankan advanced level students, as higher education opportunities in this sphere are currently limited. The head of the Chinese delegation also stated that China was ready to help to achieve the development goals set out in the president's Vistas of Prosperity policy statement. The Chinese delegation said that it was planning to resume talks on the Sri Lanka-China Free Trade Agreement and complete the Hambantota Industrial Estate project soon. G. added that he hopes that President Rajapaksa will embark on an official visit to China once the COVID-19 battle is concluded. Meanwhile, the Chinese delegation also met with Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa at Temple Trees today. During the meeting, the Prime Minister expressed his gratitude for the Chinese government's assistance in controlling the COVID-19 pandemic in Sri Lanka. The delegation said that the Chinese government has always taken steps to encourage Chinese companies to invest in Sri Lanka and added that steps have been taken to increase imports of Sri Lankan products. Following the conclusion of talks with the President and the Prime Minister, the Chinese delegation left the island this afternoon.
We will see you shortly. See you soon. Welcome back. This is First at 9. Now, stockbroking firm Asia Securities expect to bounce back after what it termed an overreaction by the equity market early this week, following the detection of the Minuangada COVID-19 cluster. Head of Equities at Asia Securities, Lahiru Ariratna, says that with corporates having already seen the government's response to the first wave, there is a sense of confidence in its ability to handle the second wave, which is evident in the recent recouping of losses from earlier this week at the CSE.
I think as a firm, what we believe is Sri Lanka is much more prepared to face a second wave. I would say we are much faster in response with higher health and safety protocols in place, and we have much higher quarantine centers right now than we had before, and we have much wider PCR testing capabilities. We have much faster responses with lockdown and isolative positive cases and tracking. If you look at the market earlier this week, it's Monday, it actually fell 7.65%, mainly because of fear over second wave. But I would like to insist that as a firm, we actually see that as an opportunity. If you look at more developed market, developed countries actually went through the second wave. What's interesting about Sri Lanka is we have a much low debt rate, and corporates have already experienced what's happened on the first wave. They're actually much more prepared to face the second wave. I think if you look at the regional impact with the second wave, there have been instances, countries like Vietnam also went through a similar phase when they actually saw the second wave, but those markets strongly rebounded. Countries like Malaysia, you could see the similar pattern. The first wave, you saw a crash in the equity market, and the second wave, but there was a fear, but the equities rebounded. So as a firm, we strongly believe that equity market will perform well for the next 12 months, mainly because of the current interest rate regime, plus the exchange rate seems to be favorable right now, with expected investment coming mainly from the Chinese delegates arriving in the country today.
Meanwhile, at the Colombo Bourse, Sri Lankan shares rose for a third straight session today on the back of gains in financial and industrial stocks, although the index booked its biggest weekly decline in over 6 months. The benchmark all-share price index closed up 1.3% at 5,798.72 after losing 4.2% this week, the most since mid-March. Meanwhile, the S&P SL 20 index of more liquid stocks gained 29.53 points to end at 2,346.68. Now, here's a brief report on today's market performance, followed by a currency update.
During the week, the ASPA lost 4.2%, mainly due to price losses in counters such as Cass and Cumberbatch, Bukit Dara and Nestle Lanka. Meanwhile, the S&P SL20 decreased by 4.3%. The average daily turnover for the week was up from last week to 3.3 billion rupees. Capital goods sector recorded the highest sector turnover during the week, whilst the second highest was seen in banking sector. Furthermore, the foreign participation remained at subdued levels during the week, with foreigners closing as net sellers, where foreign sellings accounted for 16% of the total weekly turnover. A net foreign outflow of 2.1 billion rupees was recorded for the week. This resulted in the year-to-date net foreign outflow to increase to 42.6 billion rupees. Out of the weekly turnover, crossings accounted for nearly 19%, which was a higher proportion than last week.
And that's it from all of us here at First at 9. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.